Is the housing market about to collapse around the DC area? That's the question I commonly get based on all the DOGE and the government adjustments. Let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into that. Well, to answer that, we'll start by looking at trends. You can see the gray box there on the screen is what the DC area typically sees as far as home sales. The green and the dark blue lines are 23 and 24, so we're still historically low for the area. I think anybody who knows here will say that home prices almost never decline. As a matter of fact, you can see really the only decline was in the crash of '08. We're typically on a very steady growth. So if you've thought about buying a home in the DC area or you already own one, you know that the pricing just never seems to go down. As a matter of fact, Fairfax County, where I live, in the past 5 years, they've seen a 39% increase in the cost of owning a single family dwelling home. And all of that is despite what we would view now, especially after COVID, as slightly higher interest rates. So with all that being said, the market here is unbelievably strong. Military, government, defense contractors, civilian sector, there's a lot going on here. But there is enough of a movement that the Bright MLS that governs our area has said they're going to start providing weekly stats on what they're seeing in the main counties of the area as far as what's going on in the market, price reductions, etc. And they're measuring it from what happened the week prior, and they're also measuring it from what happened the year prior, so we can really track data and trends. Now, this is the one we're going to spend just a second on. There's a lot to digest here, looking at trends from 2019 all the way up to 2025. And this is listings that are happening in the Washington, D.C. metro area, which is part of Virginia and Maryland as well. So we always know that right about this time of year, we get a very sharp incline of new listings. And that's because the military is PCSing. Folks are getting ready to put their house on the market to sell once the kids are out of school. It's just that spring fever. However, if you look at all those lines, this year it is happening just a little bit sooner, and it's happening at a little bit sharper rate than normal. So why is that? Well, I view it as it could be two things. Obviously, the administration and DOGE cuts could be a part of that. We have the return to work. We have all the other things that are going on. But we also have something that is just happening naturally. Folks have been waiting for those 2 and 3% days since COVID. And every year that we move past that, and every year we hover in the 5 to 6 range, folks start to understand this might be the new normal. And I do believe that after we get through the winter cycle and we get through tax season, and then if it's an election year, this is typically when you're going to see people start to list their properties anyways. So I believe that it's a little too early to determine is DOGE and the government mandates driving some of this, but we'll be able to tell here in the next few weeks. And speaking of DOGE, so how much is that actually affecting the local area? Well, you can see about 14% of the metro area here are civilian government employees. No shocker there. The highest being Charles County, Maryland, which is like the Waldorf area, at about 23%. And then the lowest is Frederick County, Maryland, around 10% or so. So the question I get a lot of the times is, are these adjustments and changes going to drive changes in the housing market? I do believe it will a little bit. The statistics right here on the screen show that a large majority of our folks here are part of government employees. I will also say this, that the workforce is a little bit older. We can see that almost 50% are 50 years old or older, and probably we're going to find themselves looking at the retirement button here soon anyways. The other thing that I tell a lot of folks is, I'm from a little small farm town in Iowa. There's one battery factory. If that battery factory goes under, the whole town goes under. It's the main employer. Now, while we are seeing about 14% of this area as government employees, there's so many other opportunities here, so that if these folks are impacted, maybe it will, it'll move the needle a little bit. But these folks also are extremely experienced and have high security clearances, and there's so many other non-government organizations that will end up picking them up that I truly don't think these numbers are being skewed dramatically by all of these events. So there's no doubt that this is a time of uncertainty, and there's a lot of folks that have their entire lives being uprooted right now. I will continue to provide updates as I get the information. And remember, I'm Ron, your property pilot with Century 21 Redwood in Northern Virginia, Maryland, and DC. We're ready for pushback.